Hey everybody. This video is walking you guys through your first essay assignment, which is over this early settlers unit. And in this unit, as short as it was, you guys read a couple of different texts. So you read either Christopher Columbus or Cabeza de Vaca, the letters that they wrote, or you read some poetry from Anne Bradstreet. And you read some poetry from Anne Bradstreet, I should say. So you've looked at these sort of different accounts of the early settler experience, and it's important, like I say here, that we look at sort of the larger framework and how those texts impacted or helped create a specific impact on the larger history of the American nationhood and nation identity. So what I want you to do, it's pretty simple for this essay. Choose one of the works and author that you read in this unit. So it needs to be something, again, read in this week. You're going to develop a written analysis of that work from that author, incorporating specific elements related to their life, the history, and the larger sort of historical impact. So think about like the political, social, economic, or philosophical changes that were taking place during this time period as this quote unquote new American identity was being formed by these settlers. So as you think about someone like Columbus, you want to think about how he interacted, say, with the native people, and how that sort of conqueror mentality was conveyed in his letters. Or if you look at Cabeza de Vaca, why, say, for example, is it important that he uses the language that he does when he describes the native people? How does he describe them as full, richly sort of described people, rather than how Columbus does, for example, which is much more dehumanizing? If you look at someone like Anne Bradstreet, you might think about how her poetry conveys either certain religious aspects of society and the importance of religion in this sort of social structure. You could look at the gender dynamics between husband and wife in this case, or the familial dynamics between the mother and the children. There is so much that you could kind of discuss as far as what she's conveying about life for particularly women in this time period, and what that reality was. So as you start to think about how these texts relate to that larger historical meaning or impact, or what they're conveying or talking about, think about why it matters that we read this. Why does it matter that we read Columbus, who we have, we celebrate and we have an entire holiday dedicated to? Why is it important that we read these texts and how he discusses the native people or the land, or how he's speaking to Isabella and Ferdinand? Why is it important that we read Cabeza de Vaca and his commentary on the sort of Christian oppression and conquerors that came under the guise of religion? Why is it important that we read Anne Bradstreet as the first female transatlantic poet? Why is that an important voice to have as we think about this larger American identity? So think about just some things to kind of consider. How does that author and the work influence or impact social, political, economic change in America? How do they fit or not fit with this larger new American identity? How do they help shape these ideas? So, for example, how does Christopher Columbus help shape certain ideas? Or how does the author approach a particular concept or subject? What's the message or goal? And then how is it kind of situated historically? So, for example, in Columbus's letter, there was very clear political intentions behind it. And Bradstreet did not know she was going to be published many of her poems. So there was no political agenda behind it. So what was the sort of message or purpose, and why does that perhaps convey a different sort of experience? So whatever you choose to write about, it should have clear thesis and main ideas in your essay. You should expand on those ideas with evidence from the text. So use specific quotes to show your audience what you're talking about, and then expand on those quotes with your own analysis. So what that means is if you're going to tell me that, say, Bradstreet talks about the importance of religion in kind of social structures in society, then you need to pull in a quote from a particular poem that shows that concept, that shows about her talking about religion. If you're going to say that Cabeza de Vaca describes the women and the native women in very specific sort of human-centric syntax, then you need to pull out quotes that show your audience that. And the most important thing I want to say is that you are analyzing the text as a piece of literature, not as a historical essay, not as a biographical essay. And I know that can be a little bit difficult with, say, for example, the letters, but I want you to think about them like I talk about them in the lecture. So we're looking at things like language, so syntax, you're looking at imagery, you're looking at how they're describing certain things through the lens of particular literary elements. So you have similes, for example, as they describe the land. Why is that important? Why are they using this sort of rich descriptive language to describe the bounty of this land to Ferdinand and Isabella, who are funding their voyage, right? There is a particular purpose behind that. So your essay needs to be at least a page and a half in length and is due on Sunday, June 5th at 11:59 p.m. So this is a very, very short essay. Remember, this is double-spaced, MLA, Times New Roman, Cambria, Calibri Arial font. You need to have a header in the top left corner, which has your name, the course and section, my name as the instructor, and the date. Top right should have the page numbers. You should have a title. So this is, as I said, a very short essay and should not be a problem to do by Sunday. Remember that everything is checked for plagiarism as well. You're going to be evaluated on making sure you have a good, close analysis of the works and its major concepts, as well as secondarily the historical biographical elements. So I'm going to reiterate it. Make sure you're analyzing these as a piece of literature. Most importantly, do not let it become a biography essay. Do not let it become a history essay. It needs to incorporate specific pieces of the text into the analysis, and it needs to have full, rich analysis around those quotes. Make sure you have, like I said, good evidence, like I just said, to support your claims. I'm sorry, there's no secondary research sources in this case, just the primary claims. The primary sources are required. You're more than welcome to incorporate outside research if you want to. Make sure that you cite it both in text and on a bibliography. Proper number of research sources. I'm sorry, I apologize. I did alter this. Normally I do require some source material, but in this case, given that it's just 1 week and 1 unit, then I'm taking that out for you guys. So proper page length, MLA, and citations, a fully developed essay structure. So again, an intro with a thesis claim, main ideas with evidence and analysis, and a conclusion. Your conclusion should restate your thesis and your main ideas in new words. So it should wrap up your argument and reiterate what your thesis and main ideas were. And then a good organization across the essay. So some things you can think about as you think about these as pieces of literature. Think about the archetypes, the characterization. So who's the protagonist and antagonist? For example, in Cabeza de Vaca, the protagonist is actually the native people and the antagonist is actually the Christian conquerors, right? Think about how their development. Are they flat? Are they round? Are they static? Think about things like similes, personification. Some of these may not be quite a perfect fit for something like the letters, but say in Anne Bradstreet's poetry, they would be perfect fits. Metaphors, foreshadowing. Think about even the letters have structures, so they have sort of a dramatic arc. They have conflicts, man versus society. Think about the point of view or the narrator. In some of these cases, do we have unreliable narrators. And then think about things like themes, symbols, allusions, and then of course secondarily think about the larger biographical elements, so or historical context. So the events that were surrounding the text, what social, ethical, and moral issues were being discussed, what was the author's background, and why does that influence meaning in the text. So this is purposefully broad because I want you guys to write about whichever text was most interesting to you, whichever poem specifically, or which letter, and then I want you to make an argument about that text, what was really most interesting or struck you kind of most directly about that text. So if you have any questions about it, let me know. But otherwise, this should be a pretty easy, very, very short little mini essay to kind of get us started. Thanks.